Hey everybody, what's going on? I am Rob Sesternino, and I am back here, and I'm so excited because look who's here. I am so thrilled to have here with me in the studio. Yes,
In person,
in
in the
person,
flesh, in the
in
flesh.
person. The first person to be a guest here with me in North Carolina. So excited to welcome in the great Jesse Lopez. Jesse, how are you?
I am great. It feels really surreal to be. Am I the? I'm the first like person in the reality TV community to be here,
Yes.
right? Like this is
Other
sacred
than
ground.
Nicole, nobody else has done a podcast here with me.
This is sacred ground, man. I feel like
Is it yet? It is now.
This is something big. I hit the bell again because this is.
Yeah. Well, this is just so cool.
This is
And,
awesome.
it was just really exciting to hear that there was going to be a person from Survivor 43 that lived nearby. And then to have it be somebody who played such a great game. I mean, what a thrill. How exciting.
Yeah, no, it was super fun. Finding out that you lived like I'm not trying to dox us, so
Yeah, nearby
nearby enough where we
nearby.
can, have coffee in the morning, and I can.
We can.
I think.
Yeah.
Am I invited back?
You're invited back. Yeah. I mean, I know you're not a big coffee guy like I am, but yeah, this will be,
Yeah.
let's see how this goes today.
We'll
Yeah.
see how we mesh.
Well,
it's still feeling each other out. Period. Right?
No, I've already felt you out. Very, very good. Very good.
Okay.
So, all right, we are a little bit under the gun a little bit of that. Okay, we are trying to keep this to a certain amount of time, and so we
medium dive,
a little bit of a little bit of a medium dive, and so we're very excited to have the opportunity to do it. So I don't want to waste any of our time here together. So, I mean, Jesse, I've watched all of your stuff from the season. It was very fun to go back and watch it. Where do you want to start to talk about your experience?
I mean, I'm happy to start with. I mean, do you want to get into like the casting, or do you want to just start like let's start day one?
Well, I guess for me, my thought is like, where do you feel like that you have the most interesting times from your experience, like the things that are the most important for you to let people who are listening to this know about?
I mean, so I do think that it's actually important to talk about sort of the process I went through to get to Survivor 43, because like that influenced how I played. That influenced like the way I approached the game and sort of moves that I made. I think that I was cast originally to be on 41 pre-COVID, and I was like about to fly out. I had my bags packed, everything was good to go, and then COVID hit, it shut down, production paused, and I just kind of was getting told to, we'll start soon. Eventually, it was like, okay, you're going to go through the casting process again. By the time they were ready to film, I was in sort of, I had stuff going on in my life that I was not ready to go out and play yet. So we hit pause on that. And then they eventually called me back when it was time for 43 and went through the casting process again and got on 43.
Yeah.
And so I had this experience of like, I'm going to be on the show. Oh no, I'm not going to be on the show. And so like I came into the game feeling like this is like my second life right here. This is like my second chance, and I can't sort of let it slip by. I can't like I don't want to play the game and have any regrets, because I've already sort of experienced this whole like this loss in a way. And so I think that's really important to like at least cover a little bit and talk about, because I think that influenced me going into the game and sort of like wanting to like take risks.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah. Then yeah, that's really cool. I know something that you talked about with the Dwight vote. You said at that point, you said in this game there's a question of timing, right? Like you don't want to make a big move too soon, but also you don't want to play somebody else's game. But now we're in the stage of the game where legends are made and you flame out. So it's big. This is the big league. So I'm ready. And I feel like that was, I think, a big part of you as a player of that, I don't want to waste this opportunity.
Yeah, no, I think there were multiple times where it was like I felt like I could either go with the flow here, or I could do something that's a little bit more conservative, I guess, and in some people's minds, like I could play a little bit more conservatively, or I could flip on my ally, flip on who I do know and go
Mhm.
in this different direction. And it's a risk, right? And I don't know how it's going to pan out because then I'm sticking my neck out there. Um, but like if I don't want to have regrets. And so like if I feel like that's the best move, then I'm gonna do it. So like I never wanted to play conservatively just to be safe, just so like, oh, I don't go home.
Mhm.
I wanted to play in a way that like I could steer the game in the direction that I wanted to.
I feel like that you're so interesting in terms of a player because you played, I thought, with a lot of confidence, and you did make risky moves. But I watched the Survivor after show, and you also talked about how that you went out there and like you maybe had like some self doubt about, can I do this? Will these people like me? That will I be able to be accepted by these people? And you talked about in the Survivor after show how the people, like, they did love you, like they did, and they did trust you. And this was something that was like for you like a big achievement. How nervous were you coming into to start playing this game?
Yeah, I mean, so I like I said, like I went in knowing like this is like a feeling as though this is a second chance, a second opportunity, right, to play because I was cast and taken off the
That's
cast.
what they say, play the second time like or play the first time like it's your second time.
But at the same time, I was also very like I don't think there's another word to describe it other than terrified. Like
Mhm.
I went in like very terrified of playing, even though I knew that I had to put myself out there. It's just I mean, I married, 2 kids. I said it on the show, like, I don't really go out much. I do I wanna say sorry to my friends because they invite me to parties. I
Mhm.
just don't go. But
You said I don't get invited to a lot of parties.
and my friends were like,
Yeah.
"We send you text messages all the time."
Yeah.
So, like, I just, like by nature, I'm just sort of an introvert. I stick at home. I'm very homebody with my family. That's sort of like I
Relatable.
have a
Yeah.
right. That's my small circle, and I knew going into this game, oh man, I'm gonna be around a bunch of strangers. It's gonna be like big conversations. I think I think one on one, I'm great. But once
Yeah.
you get right, if you had fish back in here, and then maybe somebody else in
All the
here,
party people.
all the
Yeah.
party people, you would probably see me start to like recede into myself, right?
Yeah.
Just because that's just my personality. I'm not the person that's going to be the life of the party. So I knew like I was terrified. It's a social game, right? And like I was very scared of like putting myself out there in that way and then just grappling with like something that I've always grappled with, like self-doubt and imposter syndrome and things like that. I knew that I can't check that at the door. That's just part of who I am and part of what I deal with. And so I knew I'd have to struggle with it out there. And just the further you get in the game, the more confident I did become. I was like, wow, like I'm actually doing this.
Mhm.
Like I may have doubted myself in the beginning, but I'm making moves and making it happen.
I would love to talk a little bit about the early days at Vessi. And you were in such an interesting spot. You talked about how in the first episode of, hey, I don't get invited to a lot of parties. Here I am. Everybody wants me to come to their party. And so it was interesting going back and watching, knowing how it was all going to work out. I think that for a lot of us viewers, we felt like, okay, your real person is Dwight. That's your partner. And Cody and NECA, they have each other. But I'm wondering if that was actually the case early on, or if it were like were you and Cody actually closer than the show made it from the beginning of the season?
So early Vessi was like interesting. Like we first day, I did not, and maybe this is like, I feel like this is a sin or something on Survivor, but like I did not talk strategy with anybody on the
Mhm.
first day. And I remember even thinking, like, I haven't had strategy talks. Am I going to be in trouble?
Was
But
that intentional?
it was partially, I did not want to like show my cards too much. And I do remember thinking, like, on that first day, I don't want to be the one to walk off with a group of 4. I don't want to be the one to walk off with a group of 3. Like, I don't want, like, I'd rather just lay back and sort of like if somebody invites me to walk away, then they invite me to walk away with them. But I didn't want to walk off in big groups. But the people that did walk away pretty frequently that I had picked up on were Noelle, Dwight, and Justine. There were a couple times during that first day where they were like, "Oh, we're gonna go get wood together. We're gonna go do this together." And so those three went off and like would go collect wood and probably talk, is what I assumed. And then by the second day, I hadn't had strategy talks, but Dwight comes up to me and he's like, "Hey man, I really like you. I really think that we could work well together. Would you like want to work with me?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, you're the first person to talk to me about strategy." And he's like, "All right, well, let me go and see if Noelle and Justine want to work with us too. Let me try and pull them in." But in my mind, I'm like, I've already seen you walk away with them and like already strategize. I know you guys are strategizing. And so I felt like I'm getting pulled in as a fourth. Like I'm getting pulled in as a fourth member here.
Yeah.
And funny enough, like as soon as Dwight walked away, Cody comes up and he's like, "Hey man, you're a straight shooter. I want to work with you." I can't do a Cody impression.
Yeah.
And so literally day 2, I had Dwight and Cody coming to me wanting to work with me. Dwight's inviting me to join this group of 4, and Cody's like, "I like that guy, like you want to work with this as a 3." So I was right off the bat, honestly, I was sort of in this position where it's like I could go to either of these alliances. And so that was where, and I think that I actively built those relationships from that point on with Dwight. I'd like have conversations with him. I'd have conversations with Cody. To an extent, I'd have conversations with Justine and Noelle as well. And so there was that sort of like I was finding myself to be getting invited to both parties, really.
Yeah, there was when Dwight got voted out, he talked a little bit about this, about how that him and Cody never really meshed well.
Yeah.
And I feel like that you were especially conscious of this, and that you used that to your benefit to really like control the flow of information at Bessie.
Yeah, no. Cody and Dwight, I don't know why. Cody didn't trust Dwight once he went on the boat or whatever. Came back. He suspected that Dwight got an advantage.
I'm not buying that story for a minute.
And he really did. He was like,
like, what aren't you buying?
Dwight showed us the no vote, right?
Right.
Like thing, and then he still didn't buy it. And so I was like, this is great, because now I'm gonna go tell Dwight that like, hey, Cody is over here. He thinks you got something. Like he thinks you got something. He doesn't trust you. And then I'm over there with Cody, and I'm like, yeah, he probably got something. He's acting a little weird. And so I was definitely stirring that sort of division and keeping them separated. Keeping these two groups separated. And I think, yeah, that was sort of the strategy. Was I want to keep these two groups separated, and then I can have some sort of decisions, especially once Dwight lost his vote.
Yeah,
because then it's on me.
Well, when I went back and I was watching this stuff, that I really started to wonder, how much did Dwight losing his vote change the entire direction of what was going to happen at Bessie? Because you talk about how like it's like, well, like look, like he doesn't have a vote, he doesn't have a say in this, so like I got to play my game.
Yeah. No, as soon as Dwight lost his vote, I like knew that like I was going to be in a power position if we went to tribal, because I had like actively had conversations with both sides, NECA and Cody, and Dwight, and Noelle, and Justine. And I also, one thing I was like making sure that I was trying to do with Dwight was making sure that he felt like we were a pair within this 4 of Noelle, Justine, Dwight, me, right? Like I was like, they're a pair. I think you need a pair. Like we should team up and like work together closely. And so then when he lost his vote, it's like, well, I'm the only person in this pair that has a say. And so I think that, especially when we lost, it was like, okay, now I really get to make the call here. And it was, do you want to get into that tribal?
Please.
Yeah. So then we lose, we go to tribal, or we're before tribal, we're strategizing. And leading up to that, we had Noelle, Justine, Dwight were thinking, oh, we're going to go after Cody, because I had told Dwight, Cody doesn't trust you. And so they were thinking we're going to go after Cody. But once we lost the challenge, the talk started being about challenge strength. And everybody was like, well, we can't really afford to lose another challenge. Let's, and they switched to them wanting to take out NECA. Dwight doesn't have his vote. I'm sitting there thinking this over, and I'm like, do I really want to set the trend here of let's vote out people based on challenge performance? Because I'm not that great. I told Neka this. I'm like, I'm worse than you at challenges. And like, she told me, she was like, do you realize so I did not want to, once they started pitching NECA, I was like, I do not want to set the tone, because if NECA goes now and then we lose again, they're not going to go for Cody. Like, and if I'm their fourth, they're going to probably take me out.
Yeah.
And so that was part of the rationale there, was like, that was one reason why I was like, I'm not going to vote out NECA. Let's look at who's on this side of things, Justine or Noelle, or even Dwight, right? But for me, and I love Justine now, we're great, we're good.
Yeah.
But we're only a couple days in, and me and Justine just didn't like, she felt a connection, but like we just didn't have too much in common. And so there was that aspect of things that I felt, but also she asked me the question of like, how can I trust you?
Yeah.
And one thing that happened in casting that I remember was Jeff looked at me and he looks me in my eyes and he's like, Jesse, you could win this game. I have like a lot of confidence in you. Like, I think you could win this game. He's like, but somebody's going to realize one day that you are like, they're going to realize what you're doing and they're going to want to take you out. And what are you going to do? And I was like, well, they're going to be the first person to go. And so the moment that Justine was like, how can I trust you? And I had already been leaning towards Justine, like voting out Justine that time. The moment she did that, I was like, I had flashback to that moment in casting, and I was like, well, she's gonna be the first to go then. And yeah, so that was that's part of the reason why I went with Justine on that vote.
You know, when I rewatched that tribal council, there's talk about how Justine and Noelle, they were a pair, and they said, and obviously Cody and NECA, that they're a pair, and I guess that leaves Dwight and Jesse. And you made such an overture to Dwight that you got down on one knee and proposed to Dwight. But was that like theater for you? Like we were like, okay, I'm going to benefit from making it look like, okay, I am publicly like the number one ally of Dwight.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think it was sort of me wanting to show Dwight that I'm like not afraid in a public setting to propose to you. Especially because I knew that like I was going to not be doing what he wanted that night. I wanted to like, I thought maybe this might help, right? And I will say that everybody was like, well, why didn't you tell Dwight? Why didn't you clue in your like number one ally for that, you know, going into that you were gonna vote out Justine? He couldn't have changed things. I think he could have blown things up, right, if I told him too soon. But I actually went to him, and I learned from Tony, one of his podcasts with you, the timing of like the sun right before tribal.
Yeah.
I watched the sun, and once it got closer to tribal, I actually went up to Dwight and I was like, hey man, like I'm feeling like maybe we should go for Justine tonight. And like he's like, no man, I don't think we should do that. I was like, I don't know. She asked me that question about not trusting me. And I was like, all right, fine. But like I had tried to clue him in a little bit. So it wasn't like a complete shock for him.
Well, I just think that that's really cool that you took something from one of the podcasts that I did with Tony, and now here you are. Maybe there's some future person is gonna listen to this.
Then they're gonna start proposing to people at every tribal. And that's the strategy.
I would love to just talk about specifically about Noelle going to Shipwheel Island, and then she comes back and she has an advantage. And you know, in the episode, it seemed like, oh, somebody's gonna get screwed up here, and maybe maybe you could have gotten advantage screwed here, because that she is going to she comes back with an extra vote here, and so
steal a vote.
I'm sorry, steal a vote.
Yep.
And this is potentially, she's going to steal somebody's vote, and then basically her and Dwight are going to have the majority. And was that just fortuitous that you had already moved off of NECA, or did you know she might have something and were able to get her to feel good about what you guys were doing?
No, I had no idea that Noelle had the steal a vote.
Yeah.
That is probably one of the only things in the game that I didn't realize was that she had that steal a vote. She came back and she said she didn't have it, and she was good at lying about it. She had it in her leg.
Yeah, I mean, who would have thought?
I'm not gonna search her leg.
Yeah,
Seems not okay.
you know.
So yeah, I believed her, and we had actually we had already all sort of settled on like it being NECA before Noelle had come back. And it was really just about all of us like just reassuring Noelle that like, it is actually NECA. It wasn't a switch from Noelle to NECA because Noelle potentially had an advantage. I had no idea. And I don't even want to think about what would have happened if we went to a tribal at 4 people with all of those like the Steal a Vote and Codys Idol, like, and 2 little factions. That I've seen people talk about what could have happened, and it would have been pretty crazy. Yeah.
So let's pick things up here. Now we get to the Mergatory, and you're going to be on the winning side. Now you say you don't contribute anything to the challenges, but you were on the winning team.
I think I probably actively detracted from my winning team, because Carla hurt her finger in that challenge, as we all saw. What we didn't see was that it was my box that I accidentally Carla's finger.
You know what?
I'm so sorry.
I
Carla.
remember like going back and watching that. I'm like, but they don't show who did the thing on Carla.
Yeah, it was me. And thank you for not showing me.
Yeah, they really like maybe this was like they want to give you a good edit. They really cut around it to hide who was the person that hurt Carla. Yeah. Was she upset with you?
No, I don't think she was. I mean, I apologized. I was like hugging her after the challenge, and I was like, oh my God. I was telling her, I was like, you could punch me in the face if you want. I'm so sorry. Yeah. I don't even think she realized I was the box that dropped on, like my box dropped on her. But I even took an opportunity after we got back from the challenge to like go up to her and say, like, I'm so sorry. I apologize. Like, this isn't even game. This is just like, I feel terrible that you basically broke your finger.
Yeah. It seems like that there's like this idea of like Vesuvius had been starting to form. And in watching you, like I wondered if that was this something that more Dwight was putting together, and especially it's Dwight and Noelle, and they're talking with Owen and with Sammy. But I wondered, is this something that you were never that high on or interested in?
I mean, I always kept like, I considered every option. Like I would have considered going that way, but I did get the vibe that like this is more of a Dwight and Noelle Baca thing. Like, after Ellie goes, they sort of fracture, and Vessi and Baca come back together, and Dwight and Noelle are trying to like, okay, let's make this Vessi Baca alliance happen. I could just tell based on like Owen is talking more to Dwight than to me. Janine's talking more to Noelle than to me. Like I could feel that they were more active in those conversations than me or Cody. And so I could pick up on like, if I go with this alliance, me and Cody, we're on the bottom here. And so I had like no interest in that. And that's part of the reason why I ran up to Carla and I was like, Carla, like I see like Noelle and them making these moves. I don't feel comfortable with it. Let's get something going. And I think, I mean, we can get into Carla, like our relationship. Like we hit it off like immediately at the merge. Like it was just like she's sitting on the other side of camp. Like we're all in like different circles, like just talking to each other, getting to know each other. And then Carla looks over. I guess somebody told her I had gone to Berkeley, and she's like, she just screams across camp, and she's like, Jesse, did you go to Berkeley? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, I went to Berkeley too. And so then we just start talking about Berkeley. We start talking about like our background. We start talking about like just, I mean, I have a background like that's a little bit different from other people, gang affiliation and just sort of different kind of neighborhood. And she could relate to that. She had family who had gone through those experiences. And so there were just things that like we connected on that I don't think I connected to other people in that sort of way. It sort of like went a little bit beyond the game where it felt like almost immediate, like family. So that's one of the reasons I felt really comfortable with Carla. And one of the reasons I was like, I don't want to go with this Vessi Baca thing because I do feel more comfortable with the people over here. Like even James to an extent, like we could connect on things that were just outside the game. But then there was also the fact that Noelle told me and Cody, I think it was at the Ellie vote, she revealed to us that she had to steal a vote. And I was like, oh, so you lied to us. It's like, okay. And you're telling us this now because like we're all scrambling. And so I was like, okay, so Noelle lied to me about the steal vote. And I also saw Dwight was right there when she told us, and Dwight did not look surprised.
Mhm.
And so I was like, okay, this is like they are very close, and they are very close with this Baka group that they're trying to form together. And so that was really part of all the sort of reasons just piling up that like I don't feel good about this. I don't feel good about this alliance that they're building.
I was thinking about that in watching this back, that maybe I need to like write a letter to Jeff Probst like he wrote to Spencer one time and apologize for saying that knowledge is power is bad, because it's created so much, and just the threat of knowledge is power really it ended up like in a lot of fortuitous ways like working to your benefit.
Yeah, no, knowledge is power. It was a key piece of my game, and Jeff, please keep bringing it.
Yeah.
No, I think that, yeah, so knowledge is power is sort of like this looming threat at this point, and all I hear is like Noelle had offered to hand me her steal a vote at one point, and I was like, oh no, you don't have to do that. And I just didn't want to be like, oh yes, give me your advantage, right? And I think that they were all just tossing their advantages around, and I think that I had built enough trust with Dwight, and we'll get into the first idol steal, I guess.
Sure.
I think
But it wasn't so much a steal.
It wasn't
He gave
a steal.
it to you.
Yeah, no, the idol gifting. I'll give it idol gifting.
Yeah.
The first idol gifting that I received. I think I had built a like good enough relationship with Dwight. I mean, I had betrayed him at the Justine vote, but like I had built up enough trust with him, built up enough social relationship with him that like I was still like in his circle of people that he could hand it off to. And he handed it off to me, but the ball was already rolling in his sort of direction. I think we talked about it in the exit interview, but like the ball was already sort of rolling in Dwight's direction. We had already decided on it being Dwight. But he didn't realize I was going to vote for him. And so he came running up to me at some point and he's like, James saw Janine hand me the idol, or I think that he did. I need to hand this off to you. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I like looked around, looked at the camera person. I was like, oh God.
Yeah. And you knew. Yeah. And you knew. Yeah.
I knew what was about to happen. And I was just like,
yeah.
Okay. That was fun.
Yes. Did you have complete confidence that he didn't tell anybody else that he gave it to you?
No, I was, well, one, we're going to tribal, and we're at tribal, and Dwight is starting to get nervous. He's starting to feel like, oh my God, like you can see it in the show, right? Like you could see, and I could hear him, like I could feel his like nervous energy. And I'm like, oh my God, is he gonna like ask for the idol back right now? If he doesn't ask for it back right now, is he gonna say something? Has he already said something? So like I'm freaking out internally, and then he doesn't say anything. He gets voted off, and then we get back to camp, and I'm like, oh my God, like did he tell Janine? Did he tell Noelle? Did he tell somebody? Like, did he tell anybody? And so I take the idol out of my bag and I just stuff it in my buff, because I'm like, if anybody asks me, I'm gonna say like, no, I don't know. Like he took it back from me, and I'm gonna dump my bag. I will empty my pockets. I will do everything, but like, I don't think people are gonna point out the buff. And so I kept it in my buff, and I went around and just was talking to people and just like saying, like checking in after tribal. And everybody was saying, did you hear that the idol went home with Dwight? Did you hear that the idol went home with Dwight? I was like, what? No way.
I could have sworn that you were the one who told James that the idol went home with Dwight.
So after like I make my rounds, by the time I reach James, he's like, did you hear? And I'm like, yeah, or no, I ended up telling him, I was like, yeah, this is what I heard. That's I confirmed. I was like, yeah, that's what I heard too. But that was sort of the thing going around, and it was
yeah.
They didn't show it, but I even went up to Janine, who was very upset. I'm so sorry, Janine. She was very upset. She was crying, and like I went up and comforted her.
Yeah.
And the idol was in my buff while I was comforting her. So this is gonna feed into people calling me a villain, but
well, okay, you brought that up. There was a lot of discourse of people talking about is Jesse a villain? Is he I'm interested to know, did you care? Was this something that that you had an opinion on?
Opinion on out there, opinion on post game.
I'm talking about post game, but I would love to get your take
I mean,
on both.
I didn't feel like a villain out there, right? Like I'm just making the decisions that I feel
Yeah.
like are best for me. And I don't feel like a villain like after the. I mean, I did some pretty messed up things, people might say, but it was all to get myself further. Maybe I'm like a bad good guy or a good bad guy.
I mean, we're talking about Survivor here.
Yeah, I mean, this is the game, right? Like I wanted to go out there and I wanted to play like 100%, give it my all. And Survivor
like, what do you
is
want to see people do on Survivor?
yeah, I just did what I had to do. And so if that makes me a villain in some people's eyes because they're rooting for other people,
Like, this
then
isn't
sure.
Survivor 1. This is Survivor 43. Like,
maybe I should have gone back and like taken the idol out and be like, here you go, Janine. Dwight told me to hold this for you.
Yeah. So I don't know, I guess, on a show that there really are no villains. I mean, somebody who's playing hard, I guess, is the villain. But
I mean, I was also never mean about like when I was voting people out, and I also felt like very terrible when I was doing things. Like I was like, God, like I like this person, and like I wasn't bashing them on the way out. It was actually hard.
Did you say a bad word about one person the whole season?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, not that I can recall.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'm a villain.
I don't think so either. I don't think so either. All right. So when you guys get to 10, you have the split vote.
Yeah.
Okay. And a lot was talked about this after the fact, especially at the final tribal council of okay, what's going to happen. Can you just talk about a little bit about the decision to go with voting out Ryan instead of it was going to be Cassidy in that spot?
Yeah, so I think like the way it ended up being shown is a little bit different than what we actually settled on. But me and Cody, we like strategy talks out there are like 5 to 10 minutes usually, like at least in my experience. It's been like you sit down, talk for 5 to 10 minutes, maybe 15, but then that's even pushing it with strategy talks. Me and Cody, we sat there for like 40 minutes, 45 minutes, like outlining, okay, if this person goes, how does it impact like this person? Like how should we shape our decision around what happens in the other tribal? And so we went through every sort of scenario. And one thing we settled on, the thing we sort of settled on was like, if James goes and then we vote out Cassidy, Carla's going to have like her back against the wall. She's going to feel very vulnerable. We already suspected she had like the idol. We had no confirmation, but we suspected it. I don't want Carla feeling like her back's against the wall, throwing punches with her idol. Like I didn't want that sort of chaos. And so we decided that like, you know what, if James goes, let's try and stay good with Carla and say like, well, we took out Ryan. We didn't want to take out Cassidy.
So one of the things that I thought was the most unclear over the course of the season, and I'd love to get some insight into, is how much was Carla? You said you had felt great about Carla, had this great relationship with Carla, but how much was Carla part of what you and Cody were doing? Like, did you look at her as like sort of like a person who was like potentially like end game? Or just somebody that you had like a good working relationship with?
I don't know about from Cody's perspective. We definitely talked strategy with Carla and we made moves with Carla, right? Like, especially like on the Noelle vote, we decided to go with, on the side of Carla and take out Noelle instead of Carla. So she was actively in like our alliance at that time. For me, I don't know about Cody, but for me, I didn't ever really plan to go to the end with Carla. I just viewed her as like too much of a threat. I also viewed Cody as like I was like considering like I don't really want to go to the end with Cody either. Like I was starting to get to the mindset around this time of like if I get to the end, I don't want to get to the end and have like any doubts about like my game. Like I want to get to the end and like have very few questions asked. I want to play the best game. I want to be sitting next to people who I know I can beat. And I didn't like I felt Carla and Cody were very good players that would be tough to beat.
So You have Gabler at this point. This is on around the Ryan vote. This is when the ride or die gets set up. Okay, so so it must be Gabler, somebody who you probably wanted to sit there at the end with. Did you have a third person in mind that you would have ideally liked to have sat at the end with?
I mean, oh,
Owen?
I love you, Owen, but Owen was like Owen tend to beat him. He would beat himself up out there, and so like I think that just like sort of from my perspective, I'm like, this is furthering like people's perception of you being on the outs,
Hmm.
and like so if I sit at the end with you and Gabler, I feel like I will. And Gabler's playing this quiet game; people aren't seeing anything.
Yeah.
I feel like I could win. So like that's sort of like those are two considerations for like who I'd want to go to the end with.
Okay. So I think we're good on the Ryan vote, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think
Okay.
I mean that's the also the vote that Cody brought in Gabler and
Yeah. Okay. So
everything for him.
the
So
okay, the Noelle vote. This is a big deal for you. This is, the get that money baby episode.
yeah, yeah. I get that money baby where I cried on
And yes, and that hasn't gone to your son Gio's head at all, right?
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, he just has a shirt that says "Get That Money Baby" on it, and he's convinced that we should start selling merch that says "Get That Money Baby." And anytime we run into
Yeah.
anybody who recognizes me, he jumps in and he's like, "I'm Get That Money Baby."
Yeah.
So, no, he's keeping a cool head about it.
Does he use baby a lot?
Not really.
Hmm.
Not really. His whole letter to me was like I love you, I miss you, I hope that you have a good time. And then it just went into the string of like meme sentences. Like
Hmm.
he's like, get that money, baby. And then he wrote a sentence about like a meme that he's seen on it was just it was fun out there and it like brought me to tears. But yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. So Noelle, she wins the challenge in amazing fashion. She I gets to make a pick. She says, this guy has been talking about family this whole time. Gotta pick Jesse.
Yeah.
Number one pick. And you go there and you get your letters and you say that the letters kind of changed the way you were looking at the game.
Yeah. I think that I mean, I had already been like in a mindset of like I want to win this game, right? But
Yeah.
like that was like okay, I will take anybody out.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter what you've like done for me, given me, like I am going to take anybody out because like this is who I'm playing for. Like I'm getting close now. Like I'm you're getting close to the end and you're starting to feel it. You're like, because when you go out there, you're thinking like, I just don't want to be first out. Like I just don't want to be this. I
Yeah.
just don't want, and now you're starting to get to the stage where it's like I can make a run for it. And so seeing those letters was like a reminder of home, is a reminder of like, this is what I'm here for. And I'm getting close to it. So I'm willing to do anything.
Okay. So you come to the realization, or it's got to be Noelle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
At the sanctuary.
At the
I
sanctuary.
didn't sleep that night because I was just running through scenarios and it all sort of for me went back
Yeah.
to
What
Noelle.
was it? Was it about did you feel like that she was like compiling power? Did you feel like that, okay, she's getting close to the end and she's got this amazing, story and spirit that she's going to, sweep the votes?
For me, it was not about like the story, or anything like that. Like it was really about like anytime Noelle, like I took out Noelle's
Hmm.
like person, she always seemed to come back. Like we took out Justine, and like we said it you saw it on the show. Like we took out Justine, she got Dwight. We took out Dwight, and then next thing you know, she's pulling off this like crazy move with the steal a vote, and
Hmm.
now she's really close with Owen, and then also now she's pulling in Sammy on this family visit and like bonding with him. I'm just like, she
It's
is really
yeah, it's amazing about Noelle that, she loses something that's very important to her and then she's able to just adapt and keep going. There's just she has this uncanny ability.
it's
It's amazing.
it's true. It's who she is. Like,
Yeah.
and it was total respect. Like, vote. Like, it was out of like you are a warrior kind of thing. It was like
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
are.
You said that to Gabler. He's like, "Oh, yes, yes. She's a warrior." Like it's like like the light bulb kind of went off for him when you were talking to him about that. But you had this amazing scene in the show, your checklist. And I'm really curious to know, like, was this a checklist that you had written prior to Survivor? Did you develop this out there? Were you sort of just like going like riffing in confessional?
I think. I mean, I was talking through my like strategy for that vote, right? And I will say, I don't know how much we can say about like producers or whatever, but the producers were pushing me. They were like, okay, like let's think about this in terms of like like each step, like what
Mm-hmm.
are your steps to this, because you're pulling off like something great or whatever, like
Yeah.
they're hyping me up, right?
So
And so then I go into this like, okay, well first, like for a blind side you have to have a cover story. They show the scene of like me having a cover story like for, oh, I was just talking to Cody about he's
mhm.
giving him his idol back.
Yeah.
For me, that wasn't the only thing I was referring to. I had a
Right.
cover story for like each time I had a conversation with somebody. Like I would tell, like if I was gonna leave Cody and talk to Noelle, I would say like, oh, I'm gonna talk to her about this, and then
Mhm.
I'd just have whatever conversation. Um, so that's where like that checklist came in. And I think a lot of, so this is something they didn't show, is that um, for that vote, me and Sammy felt like he was like in this sort of swing position. And I remember telling no, I was burying Sammy. I was like, Sammy's not trustworthy.
Mhm.
And I remember telling Noelle and I remember telling Carla the same thing. I was like, I'm gonna go up to Sammy right now. And I went to them separately and said this. I'm gonna go up to Sammy right now. I'm gonna ask him, which way are you leaning? And I'm gonna see what he says, and then I'm gonna come back to you. And I said this to Noelle and Carla separately because they both thought I was with them. And I go up to Sammy, and you see me like having this conversation with Sammy. He's like, I think right now we go Carla. I think then we go Noelle. And so it was great for me because then I actually don't have to go tell a lie. I get to go tell them both that Sammy's gonna flip on you eventually.
Mhm.
And I just get to throw him under the bus. So he was really the fall guy. For
Yeah.
that
Throw the
vote.
fall guy under the bus.
He was.
And then number 3, have a backup plan.
Yeah, have a backup plan. I think the concern was how many people were at that vote. It was 8. And somehow in Carla's mind, she thought it was going to be a very like close vote. She thought it was
Mhm.
going to be like, she wasn't convinced Gabler was with us. I think she thought it was going to be Noelle, Sammy, Owen, and Gabler voting her, right? And then me, Cody, Cassidy, and Carla voting Noelle. She was like worried about that. And so like
Mhm.
I wanted to have like somebody that we could say like, oh, this person is definitely voting with us, kind of thing, just in case. Like, yeah. I It's getting murky because like it's like been so long, but
Sure. Um,
there were a lot of numbers being run on that.
no doubt. Okay. So, all right. Noelle is going to go home, and
Yeah.
then Sammy after that. And Carla is starting to come up. She has an idea of, she wants to put out Cassidy. You are starting to like it feels like that this is sort of like the beginning of the plan that's going to ultimately do in Cody come up here, where you seem to really be high on this idea of, oh, I'm going to get Carla to vote the wrong way, to throw her off, to, okay, she's going to start to feud with Cassidy.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's when I had already been sort of planting seeds like with Cassidy. I was like, like there were conversations. I talked with Cassidy a lot about the fact that like me and her in pairs, right? Like I'm with Cody, she's with Carla, and I kept like telling her like eventually I think we're gonna have to like make a move against our allies here. And so I had been planting seeds like throughout like before that. But this was like the first one where I wanted to like, okay, show Cassidy that Carla was like gunning for her and not trustworthy and sort of stir the pot there.
Mhm.
Um, and I just remember for that vote, everybody had sort of settled on Cassidy pretty quickly. Like it was like we got back and people like were listening to Carla pitch Cassidy and they were like, all right, yeah, we're on board. Cody was on board, Sammy was on board. Um, Gabler, I think, was already on board with it. And so it was like, I guess it's Cassidy. And like I was sitting there just like, all right, I guess I'm gonna just do Cassidy because everybody else is doing Cassidy. And I just remember thinking, like, why would I go with the flow? Like, why would I go with the flow here? And especially once I talked to Carla and she was saying like how good she felt with Sammy, even after he wrote her name
Mhm.
down. I was like, okay, so this guy is really good at like rebuilding relationships here. And so I was like, let's try and figure out a way to flip it on her. And the selling point to like Cody, the selling point to Gabler was like, let's let Carla vote Cassidy.
Yeah.
and leave her out, and then let's take out Sammy.
Mhm.
And it didn't end up happening.
Yeah.
That was the pitch.
And it didn't end up happening because Sammy plays the knowledge is power, and that
Shot in the dark.
I'm sorry.
I love the knowledge is power, but that did not
Yes,
factor
shot
into
in the
this
dark.
one.
The shot in the dark. I apologize. And so that ultimately, but it feels like that. Okay, well, all right. That's something that to think about moving forward. Okay.
I also think something that's important about this vote is like when Karla flips her vote at that tribal.
Yeah.
That showed me like she's quick on her feet.
Mhm.
Like I didn't know the reasoning for sure why she did it, but the fact that she flipped her vote, I was like, okay, like she is like she can think on her feet, and that does influence something later in the game.
Yes. Well, is that part of where it's like, okay, well, okay, she's willing to make this move. Okay, I could set a trap that will spring this and get her to play her idol when you were going to play Codys Idol on Owen.
Yeah, I think that was part of that, right? Like
Mhm.
I knew that like okay, she's going to evaluate things quickly and she's going to make a move, and I just want to make sure that the move she does make is not the best move.
Because I watched that whole episode back this morning, and when you play the idol on Owen, you said that there was a whole thing about people bluffing, and you said when you play the idol on Owen, I some of us have been looking at the social contract, and I think it's time to start calling some bluffs.
Yeah.
And so like it seemed to me like that there had to have been like intentionality in what you said, in that you were trying to get Karla to be like, oh, they're calling bluffs. Uh-oh, I'm bluffing. I better play my thing.
Yeah, I thought about that speech. Like I was thinking, like, okay, it's so crazy to play the idol. It's so crazy to play an idol. Like your heart is like pounding. Like you're like, oh my god, I'm actually gonna play an idol in Survivor, and so you're freaking out. But I also was like thinking, okay, what should I say when I play this, because it matters. And I was like, like Cody and Karla are going into this talking about how they're gonna bluff their way through. They're telling me this, right? That they're bluffing their way through with their idols. And so I specifically said, like, we're calling people's bluffs now, because I wanted Karla to think, and also as soon as I sat back down, other than feeling terrible when I looked at Cody and like feeling like a horrible person, I made sure to like look over at Karla to try and like put some pressure on her. So
Yeah. All right. Well, the Cody vote, obviously, this is your master stroke. This is the thing that I think people will talk about from this season for when like we do the top 50 Survivor countdown. Like, oh, remember when Jesse voted out Cody? Remember that? You talked about like you said this. I said it at the beginning. We're in the stage of the game where legends are made, or you flame out, and this was a legendary move that you made.
that's crazy. That's surreal. Stop.
Maybe Tony is
You're gonna make me
listening.
cry.
Maybe
Oh,
Tony
no.
is listening, and he's like,
I don't
oh my
think
god, that was such a great move.
Yeah, no, that was, I think I didn't even think it would work. Like it seemed like too like big brain for it to work. But I remember sitting there, Cody's telling Karla his plan,
Mm-hmm.
or his plan that he wants her. This one was so crazy because there was a plan within a plan within a plan.
The
It
turducken.
was wild. Turducken. Cody's telling Karla like we're gonna bluff with our idols, and we're gonna get to the end. Like nobody's gonna put a vote on us because we're gonna bluff with our idols, and then we'll send Owen home.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's telling me, he's like, but we're actually gonna take out Karla.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking like, God, like that's a good move. And like Cody is the more social person in a camp life setting, right? Like he's more social in general. He's the life of the party.
Sure.
People love him. He can get people laughing, and a lot of times that matters, right? And so I'm thinking, if I don't make this move now, I might not get another chance. Cody's good at challenges. He'll still have his idol. Like I might end up either in fire with Cody, or if I get to the end, it's probably going to be because Cody took me, right? And so I did not want that to happen. And I was like, okay, well, I actually have Cody's idol. I can make sure that it actually does get played tonight. And like the idea came to me, I was like, if I play Cody's idol on Owen, who Karla thinks is going home, then Karla might play her idol incorrectly. And so I go to Owen and I pitch the idea, and I'm like, Owen, this is what Cody's going to tell you. He's going to tell you his plan to get out Karla. But here's something that you should know. I have Codys Idol. And so I pitched the idea to Owen, and Owen's like, this is great.
Yeah.
It's great. So yeah, it was, that whole day was just, and then Cody takes the idol back.
Yeah.
Oh my
And you have a great confession. You're like,
that was I didn't want to be there. I was like, because he actually took it back right before we went on our walk to go give a confessional. He literally I get called to do my confessional, and Cody runs up behind me. He's like, hey man, I think I need the idol back. And I'm like, why do you need the idol? He's like, I just need to show Carla. I was like, oh, okay. And I didn't hesitate, because if I hesitate,
right,
then he's gonna know something's up, something's afoot. Like, and so I was like, yeah, man, here you go. But I don't know why she wants to see it so bad.
Yeah.
He's like, what do you mean? I was like, I don't know, man. Like, knowledge is power came back twice. Like, you know, it's already come back, and like, you never know what she has. Like, it seems weird that she so wants you to pull out the idol at Tribal. Like, why does she want to know you have it at Tribal? Because they had been talking about pulling their idols out at Tribal and flashing them around. And I was like, why does she want to see that? Why does she want to know you have it? And so I just kind of planted that seed, went off and did my confessional. I'm freaking out. I don't want to be in the confessional. I'm like, they're asking me questions, and pretty much all they can get out of me is me just like,
right.
Because I'm like, I want to be out there trying to get this idol back. Yeah. And then when I told Owen and Cassidy, they were just like, why did you give it back? Like, should I have held it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And then he gives it back to you without you even having to ask.
Yeah. So I told Cassidy and Owen, they were like they were a little frustrated. They were like, why did you give it back? I was like, well, I don't want to hold it and let him know that like something's about to happen, like if I refuse to give it back. But I was like, if he gives it back, which I think he will, I'll give you like a thumbs up or like something. I'll give you a signal. And Cody comes walking, and we're getting really close. Like, we're getting really close to leaving. Like, I could tell just Tony Vlacho's son monitoring strategy. Like, we're getting close. And then Cody walks up, and he's like, where's your bag? And I'm like, oh, it's right there. And I had opened it. I had made sure it was wide open. And he drops it in, and I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. And so then I go, and I'm like looking for Cass, and she's helping Carla on the beach, because Carla at that point was like having a hard time walking, and she's helping her walk on the beach. And I'm like, hey, Carla. And like Cass looks, and I'm like, good job. Good job. And I'm like looking at Cass to let her know that like I got the idol back. But
yeah.
It was a stressful day.
Sure. Okay. It must have been so hard after you made the Cody move to like, okay, well, like how do I play this now? Because the cat's out of the bag at this point in terms of your threat level.
I mean, so at the Cody move, I had sort of like, that is like when I like really was like, okay, if I make this move, like that's it. Like there's no under the radar here. Like this is like, I'm on the radar, and so I like, when I made that move, I made the decision like, I'm doubling down on myself right now. And like, it's either like, I'm either winning that final immunity or I'm going to fire probably. But like, again, I was like, this is like, you don't get this opportunity very often. And it's like, I would hate to play I would hate to not make this Cody move, play conservatively, get to the end with some combination of people, and like not win. Like, I wanted to win. Like, that is what I want. And like, you know, I'd rather leave it up to like stacking bowls and maybe getting myself into the final 3 or beating someone at fire than like me get to the end and not win. Like, I wanted to play a game where there was like, walk in and I played.
We all know the details of ultimately how you go out of the game. There's a great send off for you from everybody. It really seemed like the show, the people in the game, the jury, everybody is giving you your flowers of like that. You played this incredible game, and everybody knew it.
Yeah, I appreciated it. Like, it was emotional, right? Like, Gabler's rope snaps, and I just feel it like all sort of like, oh wow, like that's the end, right? And like after like I don't know, just like pushing and like I ended up in a lot of positions where it was like I could go this way or that way and it would change outcomes probably. And I just felt like at that point I was like, God, like I put in all this work and it just like got away from me. And so I was emotional, very sad. I wanted to retreat into myself, but Gabler was like, let me give you a beer. And I was, the response and like the from everyone, and it was I didn't want to go out crying. So like I cried, but I made sure that by the end of it, like I was like, again, because I'm setting an example for my kids. Like I was like, they're gonna watch this back. I don't want to go out crying. Like I want to go out like feeling proud of myself. And I did. I felt proud of like the game that I played, and I just came up short. And that's how it goes.
You said in your final words about how, you wanted to set an example, not just for your family, but also for the kids in juvie and, all the people that were watching. And I'm sure you must have heard from, a lot of people that, watching you really, really was powerful.
Yeah, no, I've gotten a lot of messages from different people, different organizations that are like reaching out, and they're like, I just want you to know that you're like your story, your journey was meant a lot to see out there. And I do think that like, yeah, like part of it for me was like I really wanted to show people that like, like these kids that are in juvenile hall that like you write off, like, don't write them off, like invest in them and give them opportunities because not because like, oh, they can go on and play Survivor, but like because of like the stuff that I've done before Survivor, which is like I have a PhD now. Like I have like these, like I've done like, Survivor is just a part of like my story. Like I've done all of these other things, and it's all because people gave me an opportunity when I was in juvenile hall. And so that was important for me and I felt like showcasing myself out there. I'm very glad that I was able to do good and, and put that out there. So
Okay. Now, you mentioned a lot of people have been talking about the winner of the season, how that decision was made. I know from watching it all play out, you people on the jury got a lot of I'll say
love letters.
yeah, some that didn't letters that didn't say "get that money, baby." No, you guys got a lot of hate online,
Yeah,
from people who didn't understand why Gabler was the winner of the season. Can you just talk a little bit about your decision to go with Gabler over Cassidy or Owen?
yeah. I think I was actually talking about like I was talking about this with my wife.
Hmm.
I'm so thankful that she is so not tired of hearing about Survivor
Yes.
because we talk about the game a lot. But I think that you get to Ponderosa and you are talking with people and you're putting together this sort of puzzle of like you're exchanging information about like what happened in the game and who did like what and who was where. And then you go into Final Tribal and you have this sort of like puzzle laid out, but there's missing pieces because the final three are have things
Hmm.
to contribute to that puzzle. And I think that for me at least, um, the Gabler, the way he explained his game, the way he explained things, did fit well into that sort of like puzzle that I had like mapped out in my head of the game. And I don't know if this is a bad analogy or metaphor, but like that's sort of how it felt. Was like Gabler really like owned his game. He really owned how he played, his strategy. But also like there is like a social component to it, right? Like, and Gabler was really good at building these social relationships, and he was, I don't know if you saw, like, but in the after he was just rattling off things that he knew about us, and it was just like he did build like very strong social bonds in addition to sort of like saying like narrating his game in a way that was like entertaining. like
Hmm.
like and it was, and I want to be clear, like it wasn't just, oh, Gabler made me laugh or Gabler made me whatever. Like Gabler explained his game, it explained it well, and it fit with what like we like, at least what I saw of the game and with the way I saw the game. And also there was this sort of, there's always an underlying social like relationships component. I think Gabler was very good at building those relationships with people.
Well, I know we had to go through it at a little bit of a rapid speed here, but I
It's
mean,
a medium dive.
yeah,
That's all good.
the time has really, flown by for me. Um, do you have anything else that you want to make sure people know?
Not that I can think of. Me and Cody are good.
Yeah.
I'll say that. I
I
just
mean,
want to
we got that from
clarify.
the
Okay.
after show.
Okay. Yeah.
Did you think though at the after show when Cody's like, I want to give cheers to the greatest
Oh
move
God.
that ever. Did you think he was talking about you? Okay.
No, I did
Okay.
not.
All right. Jesse, what's next for you?
I am gonna try and settle back into normal life a little
Mhm.
bit and just work at my job, hang out with my family. And I have been gifted this amazing gift from Sia, and it's about figuring out like what to do with it in terms of like that safety net that I talked about on the show, building a
Mhm.
safety net. But also I have started thinking about like I don't have a huge platform, but I do have somewhat of a platform now. And I do care a lot deeply about, people who come from my background, people who are sitting in juvenile hall. And so I have
Mhm.
started to think about ways in which, I can shine a better spotlight on those people. And so a lot going on in my head about what's next, but I think it's only good things, only positive things.
Okay. Well, I'm so happy that we got to do this. I'm so
In person.
I'm so excited to get together more.
Yeah, no, our kids get to get along great.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like,
This is very exciting. Well, we can talk more about this offline, but I want to thank everybody who checked out this interview. I love to do this stuff. This is so cool to get to do this in person. Of course, if this is the kind of content that appeals to you, of course, come on over and become a part of our patron community. robhasawebsite.com/patron. And we're talking about this kind of stuff all the time. And we have a love of Survivor reality TV. And it's, I think, a really fun place to get to share our passion about this stuff. So, Jesse, thank you again
thank you.
for being
Appreciate it.
here. Thanks, everybody, for checking this out. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.